breaking down the Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, playoff edition, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Vikings season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers and the 2024 GMC Sierra on 1500 ESPN and available 24/7 on YouTube via links from the 1500 ESPN and Score North websites. I'm Jeff Diamond, former Vikings GM, former Tennessee Titans president. Our producer is Sam Bird, does a great job navigating through the snow to get here and get our show on the air. And here we go, Sam. It's playoff time, my favorite time of year. Had a lot of great memories from my career in the NFL. In playoff weeks, some good, some bad, but that's the nature of the business, and had some great memories, even early in my career against the Rams with the Vikings. And my first season, we beat the Rams in the NFC title game here to go to the Super Bowl against the Raiders. That was the last Vikings Super Bowl, and I'm going to say it's about 40-some years ago. But then the next year had a very momentous game, famous game, the Mud Bowl in Los Angeles, where there were torrential rains, which obviously they could use now in LA with what's going on there, the tragic, horrible situation in Los Angeles with the wildfires that could cause the game to be moved to Phoenix. We'll see what happens. The decision probably will be forthcoming, certainly in the next 24 hours, I would think.
Yes.
But in terms of my experience with those games, a lot of great memories, playoff games, our great playoff run in 1987 when we beat the Saints and the 49ers, Joe Montana as the number one seed, unfortunately lost in the NFC title game in Washington. And then, of course, back in 98 when we had the great 15-1 team, and then that was the worst loss in my career when we lost to the Falcons in the championship game.
We don't need to go down that path.
No,
Jeff.
we don't want to go down that path. But then the
don't.
next year I ended up in the Super Bowl with the Titans, so you never know. But I think this is a pretty even game, which the line probably reflects that, about a 1.5-point favorite for the Vikings. I think it's advantageous to them whether they play in L.A., which I hope is the case. I hope these fires obviously are under control and they can play the game in L.A.
Yeah.
But whether they play there or in Arizona, it's not going to be the kind of crowd that they faced in Detroit. We know that even when they're playing the Rams and the Rams are really good, the LA crowd is not a real boisterous crowd. And in that Thursday night game in October, Week 8, there were a ton of Viking fans there.
Yep.
And so it was not a really kind of crowd that made it difficult to hear or whatever for the Vikings. But it's a big challenge this week. The Rams are a good football team. They finished 10-7, but we'll really call it 10-6 because they didn't play their starters on offense against Seattle last week. Sat Matthew Stafford, sat Kupp and Nakua, Kieran Williams, and they got plenty of talent on that team. They beat the Vikings 30-20 in Week 8. There were some kind of extenuating circumstances, as we talked about the other night in that game, because it was a short week for the Vikings. They had to travel after a physical game with the Lions. They didn't have Blake Cashman on defense, which was a big factor in run defense and pass defense. They didn't have T.J. Hawkinson quite back yet. That's always a big factor. Cam Akers had no carries in that game. And, of course, the big factor, too, Christian Darrisaw, as you mentioned the other night, got hurt second to last play of the first half. And that was a disaster for the Vikings offensive line in the second half. David Quessenberry came in. He struggled mightily, gave up a couple sacks, several pressures, and it was very difficult for the Vikings to move the ball in the second half. So different deal this time. The other big factor in that game, Puka Nakua, the Rams' leading receiver, was expected to miss that game, was not even activated until that afternoon. And Brian Flores and his staff had to scramble, as he put it this week, to adjust to Nakua coming back, and he was very impactful in that game. 7 catches, 106 yards. And Kupp, it was his first game back, too, from his injury, and and he also had a big game. He had 5 catches, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Just they make a big difference in Stafford's comfort level. And I think the other big factor in that game, the Vikings just did not get the heat on Stafford. Only had no sacks in the game. Might have been the only time this year. Had only 2 quarterback hits on him. And so, yeah, I think, Sam, you look at this game and you got to figure the Vikings, as they approach it, there are some question marks, but it's certainly an opportunity to beat a team that I think they're better than.
Yes, and I agree with you. I think, look, the playoffs obviously are never easy. There's no easy path to the Super Bowl. But to get to the Super Bowl, you got to win this weekend or Monday night. And you're playing against a team maybe not as good as they were 3 years ago, but this coach and quarterback duo has won a Super Bowl. So did our head coach, ironically, on that team. But
right.
But you get what I mean. I mean, this is a team that you can't look past. You definitely have to be fully prepared for, because they're going to know what they're doing for this weekend.
Yeah, there's no doubt. They're a well-coached team, as the Vikings are too. And
yep.
I think it creates a really great matchup. I think that's part of the reason the NFL wanted it kind of the anchor game of the weekend. And so Monday night, they'll be going at it. It'll be exciting. Let's go back to Week 8 and look at some of the highlights from that game. And I mentioned Puka Nacua coming back, and here's an early catch. What they like to do with him a lot is to use him on those quick flanker wide receiver screens. And here's a 21-yard gain where he got him in the red zone on their opening drive.
Motion by Nacua, play fake. Nacua takes the pass, and Nacua inside the 30, inside the 20 to the 16-yard line. Dotson and Dedich, the guards, got out there.
Yeah, that's what they weren't able to quite prepare for as much as they would have liked to, but I'm sure this week they are.
Yep.
With those screens that Nacua loves to run, and Cooper Kupp will run some of those too.
And Jeff, I know you remember this from that game. I mean, they just broke the back of the Vikings defense running those plays constantly, and there was no answer for it. So hopefully they're better prepared this weekend.
and we know that Sean McVay likes to go up tempo at times, and he's got the veteran quarterback to pull it off, but so does O'Connell. And they've had success doing that too. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch too. Karen Williams, I mentioned, really good running back, had a great year, 1,299 yards rushing, ranked 7th in the league. He also scored 14 touchdowns this year, 5th best in the league, and had a couple of receiving touchdowns too. He's a guy they've got to stop. In the last game, he ran 23 times for 97 yards and also caught 5 passes in the game, including a touchdown pass on this play.
In the pocket. Touchdown! Kyren Williams.
Now, you notice Kyren Williams being covered by Ivan Pace on that play. That'll be different this week with Blake Cashman in the lineup. Mm-hmm. Most likely he'll be assigned to cover him on a play like that. And it's likely they're going to run it again, because when coaches have success, they like to go back to the well. And I think Cashman's going to be a key guy this week in that coverage. But so Ivan Pace. He had a great game against Detroit, a lot of tackles in that game. And he's certainly a guy blitzing, has an impact there. How much are the Vikings going to be willing to blitz Matthew Stafford? We'll see, because they didn't have a lot of success last time. Talk about Cooper Kupp and his return, and here's a touchdown catch that he makes in the game. And watch Stafford at 36 years old get away from, I think it's Grenard and Harrison Phillips on the play.
Vikings minus Blake Cashman tonight. He's hurt. Leads the team in tackles. Meanwhile, Stafford chased, escapes, fires, caught. Touchdown.
And you notice Stephon Gilmore was not his best game. He's had a really good season, been a really important addition to this team, but he struggled on that night, had trouble keeping track of Kupp and Nacua. They're going to need better play from him, along with better pressure up front in this game. Vikings were hanging in there all game, though, and here Justin Jefferson made one of his best catches of the year.
Darnold to the corner to Jefferson. Can he one-hand it? He's juggling, and they are going to say he did catch it.
A fantastic catch, and what a great throw. And notice Sam Darnold's feet on that play. They were on the ground, and he made a great move forward with his passing motion, wasn't thrown off his back foot, wasn't looking rattled as he was in Detroit.
Yeah.
That you talk about keys to this game, that's key number one, that Kevin O'Connell and Josh McCown get Sam back to playing with confidence.
Yep.
Drill into him, hey, you won 14 games this year. You ranked 6th in the league in passer rating. You had career highs in yards and touchdowns. You made the Pro Bowl. You had a great year.
Yep.
You got to finish well now.
That's right.
And I think that number one key to this game, he has got to go toe-to-toe with Stafford and play well. And I think if he does that, it's going to obviously increase the Vikings' chances to win. And speaking of Sam, of course, here was the big controversial play in that game where the face mask non-call in the end zone. And there's about a minute 40 left in the game at this point. If they make this call, the Vikings have a first down, maybe closer to the 20-yard line. Who knows what happens? They're down 8 at this point. But no call on this play, a safety, basically ends the game.
Darnold, look out, safety.
The thing that killed me on that play is Byron Young. You see him holding his head like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Right.
And how the referee and the line judge and everybody else misses that call, it's just ridiculous. Yeah. I think it will be the impetus perhaps for a rule change next year where they're going to look at face mask calls on replay. There were several this year around the league. But that was a game killer for the Vikings, and they lose 30-20. As we said, it was a short week.
For what?
Different deal now.
Jeff, just so you know, I'm not too thrilled with you for making me pull that play again because that was tough to watch. The
I'm
fourth,
sorry.
fifth, sixth time.
Apologize.
Yeah, that's all right. But I mean, it truly could have. I mean, if Darnold had been able to drive them down the field, you're talking about playing in LA this week or being the number 1 seed on the bye week. I mean, that's how important that call could have been. I mean, we'll never know. Yeah,
exactly right. And so that's the way it goes with officiating. And I always go back to what Bud Grant said early in my career. He said, you got to play well enough to overcome the officials. Kind of tough when that happens on the last play of the game, basically.
Yeah.
So we're going to hear from the coaches and go around the league on Wild Card Weekend. And Sam and I are going to make our picks on Vikings-Rams. But first, let's talk about our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. There are trucks, then there's the truck, GMC Sierra, with available features like the V8 engine, the ultimate luxury interior, and, of course, the available world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate. GMC Sierra, not just any truck, the truck. GMC's continued commitment to professional-grade engineering is on full display at your Select Minnesota GMC dealers. Stop by and choose from our wide selection of colors, models, and trim levels. Our friendly sales professionals are ready to work with you so you drive home happy with not just any deal, the deal. So come take a test drive today. We are professional-grade GMC. Well-qualified buyers get 0% APR on 2024 GMC Sierra light-duty models. See your Select Minnesota GMC dealers today. Length of contract limited. Some customers will not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 2/3/25. Kevin O'Connell talking this week about the Rams, and he had a very pointed session today also that we're not going to get to, but he was talking about his experience in Southern California, playing in college there, growing up there, family there, a lot of friends there, and talking about the wildfires and the situation, and certainly paying tribute to the first responders out there, and hoping that things get under control. Kevin, in his press conference earlier in the week, was talking about his confidence in Sam Darnold and looking ahead to this big playoff game, important game for him. It's his second go-round in the playoffs, and after the Vikings got beat 2 years ago by none other than Daniel Jones, who now could be the backup quarterback for the Vikings this week since he's now on the active roster. But here's the coach.
I think we can start out by saying, what an incredible gift we were given, even though the result wasn't what we wanted. You're coming off of a national TV, game for the division. It didn't go our way, but I certainly think there's some things we can extract from that experience as tough as it is to deal with today. There's not a lot of people walking around here, feeling positive about anything that took place yesterday. But part of the type of building and the type of world we've created here is I think we're all looking inward, and let's try to pull some things out of it to apply for what's going to be another, clearly another home field advantage for the Rams, an atmosphere, the moment. And let's just focus on doing our jobs, doing the little things of each guy playing their position, technique, fundamentals, play style, all the things that got us to this point to allow us to have this opportunity. That's what we'll really lean in on. And I think there's going to be a lot of things, like I said, over the course of from the start of training camp till now, the lessons that we've learned, and there's a lot of them in regards to how we'll operate, the confidence level we should have, how we handle, some of the, and rightly so, negative energy coming out of our performance yesterday. All of that, part of being a mature football team, if you're going to have a chance to progress in the tournament, you've got to be able to demonstrate you've got the ability to do that, and I think our team does.
Talking about keys to this game, and we already talked about Sam Darnold being number one key, but I think he's got to get more support from his star players. And I'm talking Justin Jefferson had only 3 catches in that Lions game. He did have 8 catches for 115 yards in the first meeting with the Rams. He is a superstar. Superstars have to perform on the big stage. The playoffs are the big stage.
Right.
And I think they need a big game from Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison, sure, he'll be cranked up, having played at USC, going back to L.A., or whether it ends up being moved, but playing against the Rams. He had a down game against Detroit. He had an excellent run before that. Previous 4 games had 25 catches. They need him to be on his game big time. Hawkinson, too, same thing. And Aaron Jones, who in the previous meeting with the Rams was held to 58 yards rushing on 19 carries, a 3.1 average. He's got to be better in this game. The offensive line has to be better, opening more holes for him, including Josh Oliver, C.J. Ham, the whole blocking scheme. Running the ball, I think, will really help Sam Darnold, and I think that's a really critical factor this week. Aaron Jones, they need him to get going. Same with Cam Akers. Had a big run last week against Detroit. Give him some shots, too. He's an ex-Ram. Offensive line, talking about them, have to be better. This is kind of a schizophrenic defense a little bit of the Rams. They played really well in the 3 weeks before the Seattle last week game when it didn't really matter, holding everybody under 10 points. The game before that, he gave up 42 to Buffalo in a game that they actually won, 44-42, week 14. So they can be had, but you got to play well against them. You got to block them. And they've got a young, aggressive defense with some really talented players. Jared Verse may be the defensive rookie of the year. He had 4.5 sacks. Then you add Braden Fisk, 8.5 sacks. Kobe Turner, 8 sacks. Byron Young, 7.5 sacks. They've got some pass rushers, kind of similar to what the Vikings can do to come in waves at teams. So got to block well. The interior guys have to be good. And so Brian O'Neill can count on him. Cam Robinson, I think, is a big, big key in this game. He's played pretty well this year after stepping in for Darisaw. He's a guy that's going to see Verse a lot. He's going to see Byron Young occasionally. He's going to have to be a big-time player in this game. And it's an important game for Cam Robinson. He's a potential free agent, too. So that's a huge key, how the Vikings offensive line performs. And they got to avoid the pre-snap penalties. We know that, in the holding calls. Don't get behind the chains. Defensively, stop the run. We talked about Kieran Williams, and that'll help to free up the pass rushers to get after Stafford, which they didn't do last time. They got to pressure him more, and they got to cover better against Kupp and Nakua and company. Let's hear from Brian Flores as he talks about that Rams offense.
We got to turn the page quickly. Biggest game of the year. Next Monday night against a very good Rams team. Just started watching them this morning. So, certainly explosive, very good players, good run game, good schematics. Sean does a great job from that standpoint. Big challenge. I think, we just got to go through our process like we do every week. Good meeting, good walkthrough, good practice. String good days together, and then that'll give us an opportunity to put our best foot forward next Monday night. I think, when we saw him, it was really the first game Puka was back. He's a big part of their offense and what they do. Outstanding player, hands, physical, contested catches, run after. They do a great job of, finding ways, different ways to get him the football, screens, obviously just, your pure route running. But they get him the ball in a myriad of ways. Good run game. They do a lot of really good things, and Stafford's playing well.
Puka Nakua we talked about, or Brian Flores talking about too, played 11 games this year, has 79 catches and 990 yards, 3 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp in 12 games had 67 catches, 710 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So they get the ball to those guys. We know that's a big part of their offense, and they get contributions from a lot of other guys. Demarcus Robinson had 2 touchdown receptions in the previous game, including the game winner. So they got to be wary of him. Tyler Johnson, the ex-Gopher, one of my clients at IFA. I love Tyler and would like to see him have a good game, but in a losing cause this week.
Of course.
But he is a guy that had 26 catches this year, had a good season for the Rams, and so he's a guy that they'll go to occasionally too. Sean McVay talking at his press conference this week about the Vikings.
You look at it, 14-3, obviously very familiar with their coaching staff, the respect, the admiration. What a great job Kevin and guys like Wes and Chris O'Hara and Thad Bogardus did when they were here. I think, defensively, they've been excellent. They pose a lot of different problems. And then offensively, Kevin does an excellent job of accentuating guys' skill sets. Obviously, Sam's had a great year. It's cool to see Cam Akers do his thing and make some plays for them over the last few weeks. Aaron Jones is dangerous. And then, their receivers, obviously, it's well documented. Justin Jefferson is as unique as it gets. They move him around, do a great job of putting him in a variety of spots. I think Jordan Addison is an excellent football player that, you see. He's a number 1 receiver on other teams. You've seen Naylor make a bunch of plays, and I think getting Hawkinson back has been big for them, with the different things that he can provide, not exclusive to just the pass game, but it's a great challenge. They're really good on teams. Obviously, Matt Daniels is their coordinator who is here with us, and, it's going to be a great challenge, but it's NFL playoff football, so we're excited about it, and we're diving into that preparation as we speak. What I see is he's done an excellent job of morphing it to his players. I think that sometimes can get a little bit overemphasized. There's a foundational philosophy that I think people carry offensively, Gary, but he's put his own spin on it that works for his team, and I think there's been a great evolution, and you really look at it, and I've been really impressed with what they've done.
Sean McVay, excellent coach, and
yeah,
a little scary going against a Super Bowl winning coach and a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and so that's part of the challenge this week, definitely.
He's like O'Connell. He just talks and talks and talks. I finally just had to cut that interview.
Exactly. Yeah, he does that for sure.
Yeah.
Another key to this game, win the special teams battle. Will Riker struggled a little bit the last couple of weeks. He's missed 3 field goals, had that terrible kick out of bounds against Detroit that gifted them 3 points at the end of the first half. He's got to get back to what he was the first half of the season. I think the good thing with Will Riker, he's kicked in big pressure games before at Alabama, national championship type games. So I don't think the pressure is going to get to him. I think he's just got to get his mechanics down and perform well. And his counterpart, Joshua Carty, has missed 5 field goals and also 4 extra points this year. So if Riker's on his game, it could be an advantage for the Vikings there. return teams are nothing special for the Rams, middle of the pack. Vikings have been not very good returning this year. But again, a big return can make a big difference in a game like this, or a block kick in a playoff game. Those are the kind of plays that can swing a game. So we shall see how it turns out. We're going to make our predictions after we hear from our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
There are trucks, then there's the truck. GMC Sierra. Not just any truck, the truck. Well-qualified buyers get 0% APR for 36 months on GMC Sierra light-duty models. See your local GMC dealer today. Monthly payment is $28.16 for every $1,000 you finance. Average example down payment 15%. Some customers will not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 3/3/25.
So you look on paper, you look at the stats, and it just looks like a game that the Vikings have the better team. And they have the 16th ranked offense. The Rams are 26th. The Vikings lead the league in takeaways with 33, lead the league in interceptions with 24. Rams are just kind of middle of the pack in those categories. Where the Rams are good at not giving the ball away, fourth fewest in the league. Stafford only 8 interceptions. So it's going to be tough. Their offensive line, 6th fewest sacks allowed. Vikings, 49 sacks, 9th most. So how's that going to play out? The run game, the Rams are okay. Kieran Williams is really good. Vikings number 2 against the rush, even though they gave up some yards, obviously, to Jahmyr Gibbs last week, but that was more towards the end of the game. As I said, I think the Vikings are the better team. So much of it, to me, depends on the performance of Sam Darnold. I think the Vikings can help him early in the game, get him in a rhythm, give him some easier throws so that he can get a little bit more confidence as he goes against this Ram team. Justin Jefferson has got to be huge in this game. 1,533 receiving yards this year, second in the league, 10 touchdowns, all-pro player. Got to go to him. But yet, find Addison, find Hockenson, Aaron Jones, a bigger game. Crowd noise, not a factor, as I said. I think this, Sam, the 2024 season already has been an unexpected success. We know that.
Yes, we do.
But a loss in the first round of the playoffs following that Detroit game would just be a downer for the team, for Kevin O'Connell in his second playoff game after the Giants game before, and for Sam Darnold after such a great season, regular season until last week, if he has another subpar game. But I think if the Vikings can get this win in L.A., which I think they certainly can do, then you're talking about, from whatever happens after that, to me, it's gravy. Right. If you win any more playoff games, if you are fortunate enough to go into Detroit maybe next week and beat the Lions, could happen. They had opportunities in the last game. Or your best scenario from the other night, Green Bay knocks off Philadelphia, Washington knocks off Tampa Bay, the Vikings beat the Rams, and Washington comes to Minnesota to U.S. Bank Stadium in the divisional playoff round. Got to love that scenario above all else, and it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about these games, too, after we make our picks. So I guess what I'm leading to is I think the presence of Cashman, Hockenson, Akers a bigger role, Cam Robinson instead of Quessenberry, if he plays well. I just feel like the Vikings are going to find a way to win. It's been a 14-win season. They can't let it die against the Rams in the wild card round.
Yeah.
We saw it the other 2 years ago. Don't want to see that movie again. I'm going to pick the Vikings 27-24 on a walk-off field goal by Reichard. What, we have the same score?
I'm done with you, Jeff. For the sake of time, I'll just say, look, you laid it out great. I had a 27-23 actually.
Oh, well, close. That is definitely close.
Yeah,
so
close, but I think the Vikings are going to be better prepared with knowing Nakua is going to play, knowing Kupp's going to be back. It'll be a lot different than what we saw in Week 8.
Right, exactly. So let's go around the league real quick. And again, we're going to be back on Tuesday to break down the Vikings-Rams playoff game since they're playing on Monday night. And we hope to have a show on Thursday next week previewing the divisional playoff round if the Vikings are hopefully still alive. Other games coming up this weekend on Saturday. I like the Chargers to go into Houston. I think Houston is kind of struggling at this point.
Yeah.
I think they'll win that game. Baltimore, again, the Steelers have lost 4 straight. The Ravens are kind of rolling. Lamar Jackson, I like them at home on Saturday night. Denver at Buffalo, I think the Josh Allen and the Bills are going to roll over rookie quarterback Bo Nix and the Broncos. I think those last 2 games on Sunday are the ones I'm excited for, and obviously the ones that affect the NFC playoffs. Talking about Green Bay at Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts coming out of concussion protocol. Will he be willing to run the ball, which is such a big part of his game? We'll see. And the Packers, Jordan Love had an elbow injury. He should be okay. The Packers, I think, can go into this game with some confidence, knowing that last year's a 7 seed. They went into Dallas and knocked off the Cowboys, drilled them. We're up 27-0, as you recall, in that game.
Yes.
I think this is an upset alert game. I'm going to pick the Eagles. Saquon Barkley, tough to stop. Hurts may not throw as much, but I could certainly see the Packers pulling the upside. I think missing Christian Watson is a tough one for Green Bay, losing their deep threat. Washington and Tampa Bay, yeah, we love Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
Would love to see him have a great game and knock off the Bucs and Baker Mayfield, but I kind of see the Bucs winning this one at home. Do you disagree with me on any of those picks?
I
know you love Washington.
Well, I wouldn't say I love Washington. I mean, if it ends up working out where the Vikings play the Commanders next week, ain't going to be no love for Washington.
Right.
Now. But I think that Washington has a good chance against Tampa. I mean, Tampa's playing well. I think Green Bay might be the surprise. If they can pull off the win in Philly, then everything just kind of goes into chaos. So I guess we'll see. I'm looking forward to Sunday night. I have my whole afternoon on Sunday blocked out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really exciting weekend. And meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes seeking his 3-peat Super Bowl. He'll sit and wait for a week, as will Jared Goff. And then the Vikings and the Rams on Monday night. Excited for that game. I think it's going to be a great one. And we will be back on Tuesday to break it all down. This has been Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, brought to you every Monday and Thursday during the Viking season by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers in the 2024 GMC Sierra on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via links from the 1500 ESPN and Score North websites. This is Jeff Diamond with Sam Bird. We will be back to talk with you on Tuesday after the Vikings and the Rams meet in the playoffs.